record. Seats comfortable?
Yeah.
As comfortable as it can be.
I mean, these are like sitting on a wobbly. Remember those wobbly things from kids?
Yeah, you just go in a circle. I love it. Okay, Ike Eastman. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, Raeyne. Thanks for all your help this weekend. It's like coming down here. We had a built-in assistant. She's yelling people because we don't have chairs and stuff. She's helping us hang signs. It was awesome.
It was free labor. Just kidding.
It was
Free labor. Well, first, I just want to tell you thank you so much for the opportunity to host my podcast every morning in your booth and let me take up the space and boss people around.
Yes, awesome. It's awesome.
So Western Hunt Expo, last day. How's the show going for you?
It's good. It's busy. 1,000 different conversations, and I'm glad we did this in the morning because by about 2:00, I can't remember my own name.
Yeah.
But this is my favorite show. If you're if you like Western hunting, you gotta come here because it's got every little trinket, every big companies here. You get to see what's new. I saw yesterday I was in the SIG booth and they have a stabilizing spotting scope, which is freaking cool. I saw new knives. I've seen just lots and lots of cool stuff. And if you're gonna come down here and do this, don't try and do it in one day. It is so big. It is at least 2 days. And if you plan on spending time talking to anybody or checking stuff out, it may be a 3-day deal.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like just over the years, they just keep getting bigger and bigger and more people want to get more. Like, it doesn't ever slow down. Like the aisles get more compact, more people are here, which is great for the hunting industry because that means people are still interested.
Yep, spending money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's $100 before you can walk through this door, I'll bet, with parking and passes and everything else.
Yeah, and it's like eat before you come.
Yeah, no kidding. I did find a good Mexican place in here in the back corner yesterday. It's pretty good.
Yeah, they don't tell everybody about it because you don't want the lines too long. But yeah, and then this is a fun addition. They just added this room, which has been kind of really nice for the podcast because it's just a little bit quieter.
Not as many people are walking through the cameras.
Yeah.
It's still happening.
Still, maybe one or two, but it's fine. And then you guys have great chairs for people to just take a breather because there's not many places to sit down.
Yeah.
So let's get in a little bit about what EASTMANS is and what EASTMANS does, especially since you guys have hosted me the last 4 days. Let them know a little bit more about your company, and then I want to dive into your history.
Okay. You want the elevator or do you want the whole 1957? I mean,
I want it all or as little as you can give me.
All right, here we go. So I say that it's a joke in our company because everybody goes like, "Oh, who's Eastman's?" And we all have the same spiel because it's the same story, right? 1957, my grandfather, Grandpa Gordon, started filming wildlife in Alaska. And that was back before sound. I mean, the camera is huge. It's 80 pounds worth of camera equipment. It's not like what you have here with Sony's and a nice lightweight carbon fiber tripod. It's a bamboo tripod, the camera, the batteries, all that stuff, 80 pounds. And so he went to Alaska and started filming wildlife, and then he would bring it back down. They lived in Washington State at the time, and he would live narrate. He'd go to the high school auditorium and live narrate. And people they've never seen a polar bear. They'd never seen a Dall sheep or a caribou, just in awe. And every time I come to a place like this or even an airport, I'll have some guy stop me and go, "Man, I was a kid in that auditorium when your grandfather, and it's the reason I hunt. It's the reason I have a passion for this. So awesome, blah, blah, blah. Thanks for that." I'm like, "I didn't do anything. I wasn't even born." But it transitioned from that into he started making theatricals, like movies in the movie theater. And it was wildlife stuff, and they had plots and stories. And there's one on Amazon that you can watch right now called Savage Wild. And it's a story of wolves. And so my grandfather was an adventurer. He had, at one time in the 60s and early 70s, he had 3 generations of wolves in captivity because he was studying them. He wanted to know, they're the apex predator up north. What do they do? What's the they're unique because they're family groups and they have an alpha and a alpha female, alpha male, and all that stuff. So he's studying them. Then he took the 3rd generation and took them back up to British Columbia and released them. And then studied them for the whole summer to see how hard it would be to go from captivity and never being in the wild because they're third generation. They were born in that enclosure. How they adapted back to their natural environment, and it happened in the course of a couple months. In fact, in the movie High, Wild, and Free, which is the film that they used or they documented all this, it took like a month and a half, and then the most of the wolves wouldn't come back to where my grandpa was camped, but one did for a really long time. And finally, on the third month, my grandpa said it was kind of sad when the bush plane came pick him up. The wolf was just sitting there like, "Where are you going? Why aren't we going together?" Yeah. So there was always one that always revered him as the alpha male. And my brother, who's a bit older than me, can remember when he was a kid, the wolves in Jackson, because they lived in Jackson Hole and they had this enclosure in Jackson. He can remember the wolves, and they thought, there's this funny story about the wolves went nuts. And my brother's like 5, and he's just sitting against the fence, and the wolves were going nuts because they thought that my Grandpa Gordon's, one of his offspring, got out of the enclosure. And so my grandpa took my brother in there, and they tackled him and rolled around with him like, "Oh, thank God you're back. We were really worried about you." The whole thing. So transitioned from that, making these theatricals, and he went to Hollywood, and that scene was kind of crazy. He then my grandmother, my dad has 2 brothers and a sister. And in the 80s, and I remember this, he came back from Hollywood, and he was a complete puddle. He was an alcoholic and all kinds of stuff. And so they put him in rehab, and he was a recovering alcoholic most of my life. And so he did a couple other weird things. He got into RC airplanes, and then my uncle Rod had this idea that, hey, Grandpa Gordon, let's take all those theatricals, and people love them. Let's put them into VHS tapes, and we'll go around to all these VHS stores and we'll sell them, and then they can rent them out. And so the first part of the 80s, most of the 80s, they were running around to, and I don't know if you remember VHS or rentals. It's like Blockbusters.
Yeah,
before.
I remember. I was like that generation where I think was the last. Like, I still remember my parents would make me sit in the back of the car and rewind it before we took it to Blockbuster, because you would get charged.
Be kind to remind.
Yeah. So
before that, every grocery store and gas stations, and there was like 2 or 3 rental places in every little town across America. And so my dad was in Vietnam, and he had top secret clearance because of a funny story with he was supposed to be a nuclear demolitionist and got washed out because he asked too many questions about, well, there's no how do we're going to set this bomb off, but how do we get out? And they're like, oh, too many questions, you're out. Well, there was no extraction plan. He asked too many questions, finds himself as a door gunner in Vietnam. And then, long story short, he comes home, he buys an outfitting business, and he hunts because he loved to hunt.
And this is your dad?
This is my dad.
Okay.
Married my mom. They were high school sweethearts. Married my mom, and he became an outfitter, and then decided he doesn't like people that much, which is really fun. If you remember my dad, he's like grumpy. He's got the best resting bitch face on the planet. But then he starts working construction. Jackson Hole's starting to boom, housing market. Starts working construction, owns his own construction company. And in 1987, the interest rates, people relate to this because of what's going on right now. Interest rates went from like 7% on a house to 23% in a matter of 18 months.
Holy. And
he had 2 spec homes, and he was building 2 huge houses for famous wealthy people, and it took him out. I mean, you go from being able to pay the interest to not being able to pay the interest, and they lost their home, and they moved to a town in Wyoming called Thermopolis, Wyoming. I was in 8th grade then. So these are parallel stories for a reason.
That's fine.
So they're selling. So my dad loses construction company, and was looking for a job, and my uncle's like, well, why don't you just jump on and start selling these videos, travel around the country and sell these videos to these, the grocery store and the video rental store and in $2.10, Texas, all over the country. And he spent a lot of time in Pennsylvania because there's a ton of hunters in Pennsylvania. And there's a ton of guys that really want to come out west hunting but didn't know how to do it. Well, he's standing at the Harrisburg show, and peddling videos, and kept getting guys coming up and picking his brain for hours on how to come out west hunting. He's like, you know what? I can't be answering those questions, and there's guys sitting there trying to give me money for videos. So he builds this. He has a guy, the newspaper guy in our hometown, and build him a frequently asked question pamphlet.
Okay.
Like, oh, hey, I heard you're the guy to talk to come out west. He goes, yeah, here, read this. Come back, ask me if you have any questions. Oh, you want a video? Take. It's just it's necessity.
Simplify, get the process smoother in the booth. And
It's just necessity. And it morphed from a 3-page pamphlet into a newsletter, into a magazine, and by 1990, it's a full-fledged magazine that he's got 2,000 subscribers to, and the video market kind of was starting to fall off. And so he started selling archery equipment while he was doing this magazine and growing this magazine. And then he started lecturing himself to try and get subscriptions. So he would go to the winter range and film big deer, and then take that footage and go to California and rent a red lion and have 200 guys show up, and he would live narrate it and give them tips and tricks on how to hunt out west and how to mule deer hunt or elk hunt or all that stuff. And oh yeah, by the way, you want more information, here's my magazine, sign up, it's $15. And I went with him when I was a kid. I went with him a couple of trips, and he'd go do this for 3 weeks and then come home and deposit the cash, print another magazine, and go do it again. And it was just this constant thing. So then he woke up one day, he was about to turn 50, woke up one day and looked at my mom and he goes, I don't want to do this when I'm 80. I'm wore out. I don't want to do this anymore. And so they sold the company to a publicly traded company, and they took that, and then he worked for them. They took it and started the bow hunting magazine, and then they started our TV show on the Outdoor Channel, which is awesome.
Was it all Eastmans? It was named Eastmans at this time?
Yep, the whole thing was Eastman's.
Okay.
Well, then because it's publicly traded, the CEO, they have a change in CEO, and the CEO is like, what are we doing with a hunting magazine? We own newspapers and little TV stations. And so they come to me and they're like, you want it back? He goes, yeah, but I ain't paying for it. I don't want to do this. In fact, the end of my contract is like next month. I was going to go, sunset cruise and go fishing.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we don't want any more. If you don't want it, we're going to sell it. He's like, I should have never named it Eastman's, because now every time I see it, it's got my name on it.
Yeah.
So he gets it back. At this time, my brother's working for him as the general manager. They moved back to Wyoming. It was in Montana. They moved back to Wyoming, and they're trying to grow it, and it's growing really fast, but they're struggling because my dad barely has a high school education. My mom barely has a high school education. My brother has a college education, but he's an engineer. He's not business. It's not.
Yeah, or publishing, which is completely different worlds.
Right. So I was working in the banking industry. I graduated college with a business degree and minor in finance and marketing, and I was working. I was on a fast track plan to be a president of First Interstate Banks. They had regions. They were hoping that in 5 years I was going to be one of those president market leaders. I was fast tracking through that. It was a lot of fun. I had my office right next to the chairman of the board. This old guy, 70-some years old. His name's Scotty, and he used to mentor me. He was a super, super smart guy. And my parents called and said, listen, we need some help. We're trying to get financing to grow this. We want to start this, this other thing and grow the business. And can you come back and help us? Because you know how to talk bank. I'm like, sure. I come back, and it's a complete, I wouldn't say it's a disaster, but it's a financial mess. They didn't understand, how to make yourself look attracting to a bank. And so the bank wouldn't give them money. I'm like, son of a gun. My dad goes, that's it. Why don't you come back? I'll pay you. You run our finances. You run our marketing to grow this business so that it looks attractive. Because I don't want to do this when I'm 80. At some point, I'm going to sell this thing again or something. Yeah. So I come back, and this is in 2003. My wife and I come back over the mountain, and we start building this business, and I triple it in the amount of, not just me, but the family. My sister was running the marketing department at the time. My brother was running all the editorial, and I was running sales and finance. We tripled the business. My dad's like, all right, now I'm done. I am really done. Now I'm almost 60 years old. I'm out.
Yeah.
And my brother and I are sitting there, and then my sister's like, well, I'm out too because I'm pregnant and I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I was like, okay, well, okay. My brother and I are looking at each other going, if he sells this, we're probably gone. They're gonna inject their own executives, and it's like, what if we just buy it from him?
Yeah.
Because they don't have enough money to retire without selling this. This is their largest asset.
Yeah.
So I put a plan together. Pardon me. I put a plan together with bank and got a bank involved, and my brother and I bought it from my parents in 2008. So my parents immediatly, we had built them this house up in the mountains. And if my dad was here, he's like 72 miles from the grocery store. You got to go up to over 2 passes and across the river. I live, with a baseball throw from the wilderness. He lived literally in the middle of nowhere. 200 inches of snow every winter, and they lived there all year. They had a ball. It was probably the funnest time my parents have ever had in their life. An absolute ball. My dad took, 4 trillion photos of wildlife and scenics, and that's what he did every day. And my mom had her own little group of friends up there, and she sews a lot. She's a quilter, and they just had an absolute ball. Well, my brother, who's significantly older than me, we go along. It's 2008. We go along till another 10 years, and basically he's like, I don't want to do this till I'm 80. What are we going to do? And what's our next step? I'm like, well, I'm 10 years behind you. I got another 10 years. My youngest kids got 10 years before they're out of high school. Why don't?
Yeah, you can't quit yet.
So we work out a deal, and I buy my brother out. And so I've owned it since 2017. My wife and I have owned it fully since 2017. And, we've grown the whole digital thing. We still have both magazines, still have a TV show on the Outdoor Channel. We have 2 shows we call them digital shows, but YouTube and wherever else, which is Beyond the Grid. We have Wingman, which is a wing shooting group, and they have their own podcast. And then we started in 2016. We started the podcast world, and now we have 6 podcasts. Everything from Eastman Elevated, which is our flagship, to my podcast, which is Eastman's podcast edition, which I get to interview cool people like you and find out what their story is and what they know. And
I wouldn't say I'm the cool. You had some pretty cool lineup this week, so I don't want to compete.
Yeah, but everybody's got cool stuff, right?
Exactly.
Everybody's story is unique, and it's fun. And then we have a Predator Pros, which is all predator hunting. Jeff Nimnick does a really good job there. We have Western Huntsman, which Jim Huntsman does a really good job. He's a lot more political than me. His goal is to get the wolf lady on his podcast and have an argument. I'm like, that's a fair goal. I don't know if you'll ever get to do it, but whatever.
It's a goal.
Yeah.
It's there.
And then we have wing shooting, which is all upland and waterfowl related. I'm missing one. Oh, and then Life of a Bow Hunter, which is Dan and Brian, both the bow hunting side of our business, and they just sit around and chew the fat and talk about gear, and they talk about what they're doing in different seasons. They talk about draw strategies and all that stuff. It's really, really interesting if you're into bow hunting. No. And then we started just recently. I have a couple other things that are coming to fruition in 25 that's going to be more Eastern related. So,
hey, because the majority of your content or of your education, it has been Western hunting specifically. So you haven't really expanded out of the Western.
No. Not well. Other
yet.
Than I've kind of. The wing shooting thing was a step, putting our toe in that water.
Okay.
I mean, but you can hunt obviously waterfowl and where we live out west.
Mm-hmm.
I did do a fly fishing. We called it fly cast. We did that for a little while, and it was right before COVID, and COVID took everybody's money out, and so I put that on the back burner. I still have it, but we don't do much with it. But yeah, this thing that I'm talking about in 25, 26 is going to be full on Eastern whitetail hunting strategies, turkey hunting strategies, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Our mission statement since my dad started this was to educate hunters to become better hunters in an entertaining way. That's it. So it's all about making guys fulfill that dream of a lifetime. Or even if you're really successful and you've killed, 70, 200-inch mule deer, you can always learn something new. There's always a new trick. And is just a community to share all that information. That's it.
Yeah. It's a lot of information. I know, I heard about you guys originally from Austin and his dad. And a lot of their education obviously is from the field. I think that was where you first learn a lot of your stuff is when you're in the field. But then second, like being able to, learn from guys like you or your dad and like people saying, oh, yes, you're doing this right. Or yes, you're doing this wrong. Right. Or the confirmation so I heard it from them originally. But, oh my gosh, I just lost my question. Okay, so when you've always kind of like done it as a family business. And then now it's kind of yours. So, like, how is that transition to be like, is your family still involved? Do they still throw in opinions? Or is it kind of like now you guys do a little bit more finer line?
When you grow up in a business, in a family business, it's like it becomes a sibling. Does that make sense?
You're talking to the right person.
It's a little brother. And one of the reasons why I couldn't really stomach somebody buying this when I came to my dad and my mom with buying it from them is it was like selling off your little brother. It's like, I can't do that. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. I mean, I was 10 when it started. The shipping department that we currently have, I developed it in high school. The program that we use to manage our subscriptions, my brother built that when he was in college. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this thing. And so I wouldn't say every Tuesday, but when I'm home on most Tuesdays, I'll go down to our little local, I don't know, is that my phone?
Is that your phone?
Yeah, I guess.
I was like, is there a lady talking like right behind the screen?
Yeah, that was weird.
All good.
Okay. Apparently YouTube was on. Anyway.
It's okay. Last week I had Dee Dee Lancy she used to wear your pillow crash. She doesn't do that anymore. But
oh yeah,
Siri started.
I know her.
Yeah, you know her. So we were talking about her art and gardening and things like that. And Siri started talking to us, and we're in my basement, which is like
start answering
dark,
her questions
I was like, what is going on? It was so creepy. It's fine.
Sorry. Anyway, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, so on Tuesdays we go down to our little watering hole, and my brother and my dad are there, and they just, because this thing, blood, sweat, and tears, they want to know what's going on in the business, and they want to know what's going on in the industry and who's doing what and all that stuff. And so I still keep them up to speed. They were here this weekend, wandering around. They still like the buzz. They still have a lot of friends in the industry. They just don't want the responsibility, and they don't want to be, having to do. They want to. In our family, we when you retire, you don't retire. You retread, is what we call it. So you just do what you want to do, not what you have to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So
that's kind of where we're at in the point, I think, of our lives, trying to determine how we're going to go back into the family industry or family business, I would say, and how do you uphold the legacy that your parents had worked so hard for and you worked really hard for, even though you were there for free labor? Like, how do you uphold or sustain that legacy? And but you know what? It's in my dad's, like, his soul that he will never retire. He never will. And it's just, some people, like, I think in different ways, right? Like, he'll probably have to step back and relax a little bit, but
I bet you there's things that he does that he doesn't like doing.
For sure.
And I'll bet he would be willing to give those up, knowing that you or somebody would use him as a sounding board on how to do it the right way. But he's got to be open-minded that things change. And, the only thing that's constant is change. One of the things that helped us transition really well with my parents is they moved away, 72 miles from us. And so they would come down through that process. They'd come down a couple times a week. And we used to call my dad the seagull back then. It was a transitional period of about 5 years. We used to call him a seagull because he'd fly down from his house. He'd come into the office and shit on everything and then fly away.
It's my dad. You're speaking.
And the employees would be like, do I really have to do that? No, it's okay.
I love it. Yeah. So how did you guys, I feel like publishing and media and just like that world has advanced so fast in the last 20, 30 years. How was y'all's process in trying to adapt and
That's a good question. That's a really good
like
question.
when those times come up, what do you do and what does that process look like?
So in 2012, 2012, I think it was. No, 2008. It was 2000. Right after we purchased the company, the country went through this micro recession, right? And all I would hear from people is print's dead, linear TV's dead. It's all gone. We're going digital. Everything's going to be digital. Facebook's going to be the next best thing since sliced bread, and everybody's going to be, using that as their marketing. And I was fly fishing with the guy that printed our magazine. And we did this annual trip where we live. He was a super nice guy from Kentucky. And, we're talking about this, and he's up front. He's from Kentucky. He's up front. He's got a beer in his hand, smoking a cigarette, and we're rowing down this river. And I go, Michael, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, this is done. I said, I just bought this company, and everybody's telling me, print's dead and linear's dead. And he leans back and laughs in his southern accent. He goes, Ike, print might be dead, but the information you have ain't going nowhere. I went, what? He goes, you just got to figure out how to deliver the same information in whatever way people are getting it. I went, he goes, now I'm the one that's in trouble. He goes, because printing, it may be dead, and it might be dead tomorrow. I'm the one that's the printer. I went, holy crap, you're right. So I immediately went home and I started a plan. And we started taking a lot of our content and we put it in email blasts. And that's when we started our YouTube channel and started putting, content on YouTube and started really getting after Facebook. Instagram wasn't quite a thing yet. And just said, you know what? This information is important. People want to know this information. We just have to deliver it however they're getting their stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to sit back and look at the forest, not get focused on each tree. Through I told you the whole story, but there's a part of the story that I kind of left out. My dad was an innovator. He's always been an innovator. There's a photo, and if you come to hopefully you will, someday you come to our office, and the front of our office is what we call the museum. And there's a corner for my grandfather. It has that camera and the tripod. And it has some of the old, the big, huge reels of movies.
Yeah.
It was 8mm movies and these big, huge round wheels. Have one of those. It's High, Wild, and Free sitting there. And then the other side is my parents' side. And it's kind of a memoriam to them. And there's a photo of my parents when they were 38 years old, and my dad's sitting on a desk, on the corner of a desk, my mom's sitting on a chair, and they have an old Macintosh 2 computer in the photo. I have that photo, and I have the computer sitting on a desk. So I tell you that because my dad was an innovator. He figured out that he could build a magazine because of computing. And so he bought a computer and figured out how to word process, and he was like the first word processor, and he would write all the articles. He had like 4 pen names, and he'd write all the articles for this magazine. And then, fast forward, then he was one of the first magazines to go from digital to plate. What that means is he would build this magazine inside this computer, and then he would take the files, and they were old discs. I can't remember the name of them, but he'd have like 30 of these discs, and he'd download them on this disc, and then he'd overnight them to a printer, and then they'd put it in their system, and they would print the magazine from that. Before they would have to take photos, they'd have to print out each page and take a photo of it, and then make prints, and then they'd cut stuff out. It was unbelievable, the process to print a paper or a magazine. Unbelievable. Well, he was one of the first ones to go, they call it digital plate. And then TV shows. He figured out how to take a camera, a little tiny 3-chip camera, and film a hunt, and then take that footage, download it into a computer, edit the footage, take it back out of the computer, and not lose resolution. Because every time it's called generations. Every time you did that before, you would lose resolution. And so you had these guys filming on really high-end cameras, and then by the time they got it to the network, it had lost like 4 or 5 generations. Well, he figured out how to do it with only 1 generation lost. So we put on an outdoor channel for 5 or 6 years before they ever knew we weren't filming with $100,000 cameras. We were filming with a $4,000 Canon that was a 3-chip process. So innovation in being able to go, I think there's a better way. Right now, we're doing some stuff with AI because that's the next step. That's the next technology that's going to make our lives easier and our lives, more functional, and allow the humans to do what we're good at and not have to rely on the legwork, the mundane, taking data out of a spreadsheet and putting it into this, or taking an article and cleaning it up so the grammar's right.
Yeah.
All that stuff. AI is the next thing. But so the same thing in 2009 when I looked at what we're doing, it's just innovation, looking and going, how do we move to the next step and recognize that there's going to be a better way. I read, my wife teases me all the time. I read constant books, and I read a lot of online blogs just because the information's really fast, and you get good at sorting through it on what's the next thing, what's Apple doing, what's Google doing, what's Meta doing, what's the next thing that's going to help us and that we can adapt into our company to make hunters become better hunters in an entertaining way.
Yeah, that's I think changing your mindset to where, back to where you were on the boat, like instead of thinking it as like, oh, it's going to take me down, like changing the mindset of like, how can I make this a tool to take me to the next level is very, very important.
Yes.
Is there one specific thing that's been the biggest challenge to overcome in the innovation space?
Yeah, economics of scale. So, I always say we live in no man's land. We're not a startup company because we've been around for 38 years, but we're not a company that grew it to millions of dollars with lots of resources and lots of assets that can dump back into technology, because as technology changes, that becomes a bigger and bigger hurdle and a bigger resource suck for a company our size. It's hard to do that, which means that we can't jump on the innovations as soon as we want. So I would say technology's been a struggle. Every other day there's a new platform that we have to do something with, and I would say that's the thing. But and the other one that was a struggle early is where we live, because we live in the middle of nowhere, and getting good qualified team members to move there and be part of the team was a struggle early. I think there's only 2 people that work for me that lived there before they worked for me. Everyone else we moved in. And it used to be hard. I had a guy that was gonna sell sponsorships and advertising for me. I flew him and his wife from California into Cody, Wyoming, where we live. His wife wouldn't get off the airplane. She's like, nope, because I was like, oh, bring them in March. They'll get to see a little bit of winter, a little bit of spring. She's like, nope, not getting off the airplane. She got in the airport, booked a flight, went home.
Oh,
so
boy.
It's a little weird. We live in a weird place. But it's now it's a cool. People want to live there because it's like, Bozeman has the shtick of being Montana and wild.
Yeah.
It's not. It's a big city now. We live in what they portray themselves as.
Yeah.
I live in a town that has 6,000 people, and I have 2 wildernesses within 45 minutes of drive both directions. We have ski hills, and we have BLM within 15 minutes of town. I can go shoot my gun. It's if you're into Western hunting, move to Montana.
If you really want to live like Yellowstone.
Best thing that ever happened to Wyoming is on Yellowstone is they made Wyoming the train station. I'm like, yes, we're lawless. You shouldn't move here. It's horrible, horrible place. And it does. I mean, it is a unique place. We left Wednesday morning. It was 21 below zero. I mean, it's cold.
Yeah.
And we have full on winter. 12 inches of snow on the ground, and it was 6 below zero this morning. And I mean, it's not a lot of fun. And in the summer it gets 105 degrees. I mean, huge swings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Not my climate, but I would visit.
not a lot of Texans like to live there.
No. Okay, so when it made the shift, and this is just a curious question for me.
Yeah.
Now I feel like media and information is very just almost just free. Like you can look up anybody's YouTube, you can look I feel like everybody has like some kind of podcast. How do you as a brand like I don't know, stay true to the core or like how is that affecting?
So, you know, I'm sitting on shoulders of giants, okay? The brand, the Eastman's brand, has been around for so long, and generations have trusted the information that we've done, and we stay core to our we have really high level of ethics. You can't work for me if you have a game violation. You can't. Sorry. If you get a game violation, and this has happened, you get a game violation while working for me, you're fired. I want the highest standard. I never want somebody to go, yeah, but you know, I heard they're poaching or they're shooting stuff out of season or they're trespassing. Never going to do that. And we've done that for generations, so people trust that. So when I say, hey, this is a backpack that you should consider, and here's what differentiates it from others, you know, it's got an adjustable, it's got a different way to do load lift, or you know, this meat shelf is different or whatever. People trust that because they've been doing it for generations. Mm-hmm. That's what makes us different than, you know, a podcast that started 2 years ago. Yeah, it's entertaining, but does the guy really know? I can show you generations of trophy animals and success stories because of gear that we've suggested. Mm-hmm. You know, I killed my first deer at 14 years old. I'm almost 50. That's a lot of deer. That's a lot of elk. It's a lot of antelope. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of beating my head against the wall, learning strategies and stuff. I had a podcast with the Vortex guys yesterday, and we were talking about antelope. And Mark Boardman's going, I had no idea you knew so much about antelope. I'm like, that's what I do. That's what, you know, that's...
Well, it's your job to know because people trust you.
And that's who our family was. We used to, when we'd drive around, we'd go to these shows, like just like this. I mean, I was... I think I was 7 years old the first time I came to a show in this facility, and it was a mule deer show. Mm-hmm. I slept underneath the counters. My parents were selling videos on one side and selling subscriptions on the other. Mm-hmm. I mean, I grew up in this. But when we were driving around, my dad would do things like, who can tell me when a porcupine ruts? Well, who the hell cares, right? Well, I know. They rut in August.
I had no idea.
That's what they do. And he would do things like, what river is that? Oh, it's a Shoshone River. Okay, tell me this is the Shoshone River, the North Fork of the Shoshone. What river does it dump into? And that river dumped in. Give me the string of rivers until it ends up in an ocean. And I can tell you every river out west, where it goes, what river it dumps into, and what, because it's a striving for knowledge. And mm-hmm. we're more than just hunters. We're outdoors people. I know things like when porcupines rut, because that's what you should know if you're an outdoorsman. You should know things like that. Mm-hmm. You should know that coyotes do this, or wolves behave that way, or mountain lions do this. And more importantly, the antelope do this because of this, and elk do this because of this, and deer do this because of this. It's generational, and people trust that because they've seen it over generations. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that answers your question. I don't know.
It does. It does. If it didn't answer mine, it definitely answered somebody's. So, just kidding. So let's go into a little bit of your hunting background. Okay. You grew up hunting, and you've done probably most of every species in the Western hunting space.
Oh yeah.
If not multiple times.
I've been involved. I wouldn't say I've killed them all. I've never taken a sheep. I've never taken a moose. I don't have the sheep bug. My brother has a sheep bug. I've been on a bunch of sheep hunts. I never got it. I don't know why.
Do you, because I've had this conversation with a couple of people. I think there's like a switch in a hunter when, you know, you've done it your whole life because that's what your family does and you don't know anymore, to the switch of, oh, I love this. Like, this is what I want to do for my life, and this is how I want to provide for my family. Mm-hmm. Do you have that moment, or do you know when that switch was?
So there's a transition of hunters. There's stages of them, and it starts when you're young, and in our family at least, it was just, this is what we do. You know, it's like, mm-hmm. some people, if they're a mechanic, this is what we do. We work on cars. Or if they're a banker, if they're own a coffee shop or whatever, I don't know what your parents' business are, but that's just what you do, right? But we don't know any different. It's what we do. And then at some point you go, okay, this is what we do, and my family's making a living at it. Is this what I want to do? And I had a switch in college. It's like, I hunted all through college and stuff, but I wanted to be a banker. I wanted to be an ag lender. I love the ag industry. Absolutely. I mean, I was going to be an ag lender, and my dream was, I had a podcast this weekend with a couple guys that they're trying to get the, start from nothing ranch and build it up to where they actually can make a living off of it.
Yeah.
That was my dream.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, that's what I was going to do. I all through high school worked on a ranch with a guy that's what he did. And then, so I was working in banking, and I was going to be an ag lender, and my parents needed help. And then the little brother's sick, right? The little brother, Eastman's publishing, was sick, and I needed to go home and help the little brother. And then I started making a living at it, and still passionate about it. But honestly, I would say my passion is stronger about the business side of things than it is about the hunting stuff. Now, I have guys work for me, Dan Picard, Brian Barney. These guys are passionate hunters. They don't want to do anything else. If they could hunt every 365, they would. That's their deal. They don't, they're great team members because that's their passion. So there's transitions of hunters, and you start with this, little kid, this is what we do. And then you're like, man, I really like this. And then you start setting goals. Like, I want to shoot something every year. And sometimes it's cows or does or whatever. And then it says, I want to shoot a 4-point buck. And then I want to shoot, I'm not going to kill anything unless it's bigger than the deer I shot before or the elk I shot before. And then you get to another stage where you're like, okay, then life splits, and there's collectors, and then there's specialists in the hunting industry. This is way longer than you expected.
No, you're good.
So the collectors are the guys that their dream is to shoot the 29 species in North America. They want to shoot one of every species in North America. And then they differentiate, like, I want to shoot a Boone and Crockett or a Pope and Young of every species. Or, I really love, every one of these. I want to do every one. And then there's guys that are specialists. And this is where you see the guy that's got, 6 sheep or 12 sheep or 18 sheep. Or the guy that, if he can hunt one thing, he would hunt mule deer. That's it. All I do is hunt mule deer. I'm a specialist. Or guys like Dan Picard who want to shoot every elk he can, he's also going, I'm not going to shoot a bull unless it's bigger. Oops, I shot a 5-point because he was standing there. I mean, he just wants to shoot a bunch of elk.
Yeah.
Those are specialists. There's collectors and there's specialists. And then the next step after that is, and I've watched my grandfather go through this. I've watched my dad go through this. I'm starting to watch my brother go through this. I've hunted enough. I've killed enough. I love the industry. I want to be involved. I want to go to hunting camp because of the camaraderie and the bro time and all that stuff. But I don't have to pull the trigger. In fact, I don't even want to pull the trigger anymore. I don't. And then they start losing their hunter instinct. It takes them longer to get, to take the shot. It takes them, they're physically not able to hunt like they used to. Still want to, but not physically able to do that. So those are the hunting stages in life. And then at some point they're like, okay, I'm done. I can't even be at camp anymore. I'm kind of a burden to all the young guys.
Yeah.
And I'll sit around and I'll tell my grandkids about it. Or I'll only go if my grandkids are with me, kind of thing, and pass that off.
I want to add another stage on that
Okay.
because I've heard a couple people say it, and now I'm kind of in. I mean, he's a year, but
as you look at your son.
Yeah, I think there's another stage of it when you've done it a lot and you've done it enough that now you're focusing on the next generation, which is your kids, and you're like, at this point, I don't care if I kill an animal. I'd rather have him have the experience and him understand the depth and the depth of what he's partaking in.
Right.
So there's the parent part of.
Yeah, and I think those are parallel. So in my stage, I killed a really big deer this year. I'm still trophy hunting. I'm still, trying to excel. But I also took my kids hunting. I took my youngest, killed her first big game animal this year. And I took her and her little friend. It was almost brings tears to my eyes. Probably the best hunt I've ever been on. Sitting in a blind on the edge of a cornfield, waiting for a buck to come out with these two little 6th graders. And you said this is when I learned about the tee. I didn't even know what the tee was. I know all of the tee for 6th grade from sitting in a blind for 5 nights in a row with these little 6th graders. And her little friend killed this little spike whitetail, and epic shot, epic adventure. Just that was meant more to me than my 220-inch deer I killed 2 weeks before that. Way more, because it's passing it on, and just getting to see hunting through their eyes is probably one of the most meaningful things I've ever done.
Yeah.
It was fun.
So fun. Yeah, I'm excited. We took, this kid has been on more hunts his whole life so far than most people have in theirs. But yeah, he did his first dove hunt. He did his first mule deer hunt. And I mean, he's won. He doesn't even know what's going on. Not even going to remember it, but it does mean something when you're
But it will never be introduced to him, because it will be, this is what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then he will remember it, because when I opened my scrapbook with all of my Polaroids that I was telling you,
I didn't even know they made Polaroid cameras anymore. I was asking, like, what is that white camera she's taking photos with? I've never seen, like, underwater camera. What is that?
It's just my big old memory camera that makes sure that we remember the moment right there.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love
it's better
it.
than your cell phone, because your cell phone might crash or lose the photos. I love that idea.
And you forget
Super cool.
you forget to print them.
Yeah.
So like you literally, his scrapbook is literally all Polaroid pictures.
That's
which
awesome.
Is super old school. Now I'm a little scared, because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to get sleeves and make sure they're protected, because
do they go away? I don't know.
Exactly, right? Like, it's a little scary. So, but no, they're fun. They're fun. Okay, so I know the show is picking up, so it is starting to get louder. So I have some rapid fire questions for you.
Do I have to think about them, or can I think about them, or do I just have to say off the top of my head?
Depends on the question. Some people are taking longer to think about them.
Are you going to show me ink blots? Looks like a rabbit. Still looks like a deer. This one, deer. Big buck.
No, God,
Oh,
no, I
that's an
couldn't
elk.
even do that. But okay, if you could pick anywhere in the world to hunt, not in the West, where would you go?
Africa.
Have you done it yet?
Oh, I've been over 6 times.
Oh, okay.
I just
go back.
Oh yeah, I took my 2 daughters and my wife to South Africa this year. Had an unbelievable hunt. They both took zebras and a couple plains game. We had an unbelievable experience with darting a rhino. My gosh. It wasn't a plan. It was just the PH like, hey, we're darting a rhino tomorrow. You want to go along? Yeah, we do.
Sure.
Held $1 million worth of rhino horn in my hands. I mean, yes, Africa, 100%. In fact, the first time we went over there, my wife and I, it was 2003. We just part of the reason that my parents got us back to the company is they like, hey, if you come back over, we'll buy the hunting trip if you can pay for the travel to Africa, but we'll buy the hunting trip. I was like, okay,
sold.
Yeah, I'm in. And so we went to Tanzania in 2003. And on the way home, my wife's like, well, was it everything you expected? And I was like, honestly, honey, if you and I weren't married, I wouldn't be on this airplane. I would live there. I would do this every day. It's the Wild West, and it's exciting, and it's Africa, 100%. And I've been to Mongolia. I've hunted on every continent, but I have not been to Australia, New Zealand, and I haven't hunted Antarctica, but I've been everywhere else, and Africa.
Okay. I love it. Yeah, that's on my bucket list. Austin went with his dad for their, but basically his like bachelor party. Like him and his dad, right before we got married, they went, and I'm so glad that they did. And my parents have gone a couple of times, and still waiting for my invite, but it's okay. Just work and do it myself.
There you go.
Okay, if you had to fight a mountain lion or a grizzly, what would you pick?
Grizzly.
Really?
Yep.
And why?
So grizzlies are bullies. All you
Okay.
got to do is punch a bully in the face, right? Everybody's watched the Christmas Story. Punch a bully in the face and they leave you alone. A mountain lion is not a bully. They're actually hunting. And I had an experience with my brother and I. We were bow hunting elk, and my brother was in a ghillie suit. You know what a ghillie suit is?
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah, he was.
I do.
We are calling this bull in, so we're acting like cows and calves, and I'm filming, and I get this weird sense, and I turn around and I just see a flicker, and it's the tail of a mountain lion, and he's stalking us.
Oh.
And I stood up, and it took, and this is all on camera. It's on a film called high and low in mule deer country. And I stood up, and this lion looks at me, and it took him, I mean, it felt like forever, but it took him better part of a minute to figure out that I am not a cow elk. And then he jumps up and runs off. They're hunting, and you don't even know when you get attacked by them. They don't come in. They come in silent. They come in there. I am more deathly scared of mountain lions than I am grizzly bears. Because grizzly bears is just a bully. You punch him in the face, spray him with bear spray. Mountain lions, no. And if you've ever watched a mountain lion, this is on our YouTube channel. If you've ever watched a mountain lion take down a deer, what they can do to a full, a 200-pound mature mule deer buck, and how many times that buck kicks that lion in the head, like 100, and that lion just rolls his eyes back and holds on until he's wore out. It's mountain lion scary.
Holy cow. All right. Okay. Okay, this one's funny. If an animal could talk, which one do you think would trash talk hunters the most?
Trash talk hunters? Sheep.
Sheep?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I don't know, sheep or mountain goats. Maybe mountain goats.
Mountain goat?
Yeah. Because I could just see them look and go, isn't that cute? Look at you guys trying to climb up that hill. Isn't that cute? And then they just walk across a sheer cliff, just like they're walking down a street.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's funny. My husband said squirrels.
Oh, you know what? That's actually a great, because those little buggers, nothing scarier than a stupid squirrel when you're in bear country, and all of a sudden you hear him drop a nut or something, drop a pine cone. You're like, that's a bear. I know it's a bear.
It's just a little fluffy squirrel. I love it. Okay, if you
Squirrel. That's great. He's way smarter than me.
If you could hunt one species for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Antelope. Yeah, I love antelope. They're such a neat animal. It's a great hunt to start a kid on, because it's not physical. You're driving around, you see a lot of animals. There's snacks. Gotta have snacks when you're hunting with kids.
You gotta have snacks.
And you can hunt them when you're 80 years old because of the same things. It's not physical. You see a lot of animals. You'll have lots of opportunities if you've lost that hunter instinct. Yeah. Antelope.
I love it. Do you have a pre-hunt ritual or a good luck charm?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's a pre-rut ritual, but I do every hunt that I go on, I try and find something unique that's not has anything to do with, well, sometimes it does, but it doesn't really have anything to do with whatever I'm hunting. Like antelope hunting, I typically try and find something unique. If it's a arrowhead, or it's an antelope sheath, or on my brother's sheep hunt when we were in Northwest Territory, I found a tip of a lamb tip or something off of a sheep, and so or a rock, a cool rock. I mean, it can be anything, a neat piece of wood or something. If you come to my office, I have all these little things like that all over the place, and every one of them is a memory, because I see that horn and I remember that hike that we were on, that death march for 18 hours to get to the sheep kind of thing. So
yeah, that's so fun. That's what Austin and his dad do too. So it's cool to see that other people do it. What is your favorite campfire meal after a long day in the field?
Probably beef stroganoff.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, beef stroganoff is my favorite, and there's a couple companies that make freeze-dried ones that are really good.
Yeah.
Shelfless plug here. There's one called ReadyWise that has my face on it, but it's beef stroganoff and it has buffalo meat in it. It's really, really good. But that's because a lot of carbs, lots of protein. It's easy to make, and it's, you can pack it anywhere.
I mean, they do samples here at the show, and it's always really good, like when you taste the sample. But man, when you get out in that field, it's like the
way better.
Best meal you've ever had. 5-star, it's the best. Okay, when you're not hunting, what are you doing for fun?
I have a bunch of hobbies, and I have kids that are 12 and 15, so that's a hobby. But I really enjoy snowmobiling. Backcountry snowmobiling, the Chris Burdett type style snowmobiling. That's what I did last weekend in Alpine, Wyoming. So in the winter I snowmobile, and in the summer I fly fish. I love fly fishing. That's the thing that my dad and brother, they're retreading. They fly fish a lot, and I get to do it a little bit because I'm not retired yet, but
Yeah.
fly fishing.
I love it. Fly fishing is my favorite too. I think it's a really great intro for fishing because it's active and you have to like think about it the whole time.
It's similar to
So-
a lot of bow hunters fly fish because it's
Okay.
very similar. It's stalking fish. It's you have to have the right gear. You have to have you're tinkering with the flies to get the right bite. I mean, like Brian Barney and Dan Picard, great fly fishermen. That's what they do in the summer. Well,
Yeah.
they do it in the winter too, but
I love it. So I'll just invite myself to Wyoming.
come on up.
And
Come on up. We'll take you.
Okay, this one's a fun one. If you could have any superpower to make you a better hunter, what would it be?
Knowledge.
Knowledge.
Yeah, as much knowledge as you can about whatever you're hunting or just the outdoors.
Okay.
Because knowledge is the power, so you don't have to walk farther, you don't have to walk faster, you don't have to you may not have to shoot or practice as much shooting if you have all the knowledge on how to do it.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
That's a good one. Wow. Everybody else's was like more physical, I think. Everybody was like transparent.
But if you can get there, it doesn't mean you know how to do it.
That's true. That's
Just
a
because
good
I can run to the top of the mountain doesn't make success. But if I can walk to the top of the mountain even slowly, and I get up there and I know where the animal's going to be, and I know how to stalk that animal because that animal's doing X, Y, Z, I will be more successful tenfold than the guy that can run up there 10 times faster than me.
Wisdom. That's Eastman's for you. It's all wisdom. What is the best piece of hunting advice that you have ever received?
Patience. Once again, we'll talk about running to the top of the mountain. Because I'm going slow, I see more. I'm not bumping animals. And when I get there, if I just become a fly on the wall and just notice the things that are going on around me, being patient to that buck coming out, or being patient for that elk to make to slip up and make his mistake, and then I capitalize on it. So patience. Patience, patience, patience.
I love it. Well, I have enjoyed talking to you and
Thank
getting
you.
to know you. And
Those are pretty great questions.
some of them were mine. Some of them were ChatGPT.
Seriously?
I did. I ChatGPT'd like a bunch of questions, and then there were some that I was like, I do want to ask this one or something. So yes, I did use my resources.
There you go. You're using technology.
I
Look
am.
at you.
Look at me go. My mom would be so proud.
That is very cool.
Give me 1 second. I have something for you.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
It's Valentine's. Sorry, let me get to the mic. Since it's Valentine's Day.
You're gonna laugh your butt off.
Oh
at
no,
this.
you've had this.
My wife put that in my briefcase.
You're kidding.
No.
Okay.
That's in the refrigerator in my hotel room.
Oh, I love it. Well, I got it for you and your team.
Oh, thank you.
And if you want to open it so that we can
Did you get
show
this?
the camera, I did.
Oh yeah,
I
it's the
get
same
them-
one. These are awesome.
So I got them
They're
for
good,
you and
too.
your team, and really just my.
They're meat hearts with kiss me and love and
I didn't mean that.
No.
It was really for the team, and it was just for gratitude. So you can just give that to your wife. That's fine.
She's gonna laugh.
but-
Have you met my wife yet? You met her last year, didn't you?
I don't remember. I don't
think
know.
you did.
If
She
I
was here.
did, honestly, I was so pregnant at this show last year.
Yeah.
I was just trying to like get the baby out at that
Survive.
point. But yeah, so this is kind of like a thank you for your team, because this has been a huge opportunity for me, and I'm so grateful. This is like something I'm doing that's like completely out of my comfort zone this year, and
Good for you.
And-
Well, you're good at it. Keep it up. So I have something for you. So
oh
this is
no,
so on my podcast I give every guest a silver coin. It's 100% silver, and it's for you. It's I call them chits or tokens. So that's for you. Thank you for all of your help and running and making sure that this happened, and it looks beautiful and it's worked wonderful.
well,
So,
thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm excited. I can't wait to get that phone call for what I owe you, but
There isn't nothing. You don't owe us anything.
I know, I'm just giving you a hard time. But I will, let me read this to you.
Oh, yeah.
You should read that out loud.
Oh my gosh, they can print on meat?
They can print on meat.
That's jerky. It's a chunk of jerky. It's a slab
jerky.
of meat. It says, Eastman's, your support meets the world, so here's a thank you that won't wilt, ready to...
Ready to Raeyne. That's the
ready to
podcast.
Raeyne.
Yeah. So they're flowers.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Excited for this one to drop, and thanks for the support.
I appreciate it. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, Facebook.
Oh, yes.
Eastmans.com, and make sure that you check you out because you have some funny posts. Yours is one of the ones that I laugh at. Your kid, Halloween. That was funny. That's funny.
If you haven't seen my page, go see the Halloween costume. Do explain before we log off how they can learn about from Eastman's and the education process on that.
Yeah, so Eastmans.com, we have an online where you can do the tag strategies and you can overlay, hunt areas with maps. And then we also have a learning group in there. And Brian and Dan, Dan's the head of that group, but they do like hundreds of hours on elk hunting and deer hunting and all the strategies from A to Z, gear and hunting strategies and backpack strategies, all of that stuff is learning group. We also still have the print magazines, so you can subscribe to the print magazines. We'll ship you a magazine every month, and there's lots of articles and stories from hunters just like you. The front side of it, we call them feature stories, and they're just random dudes, electrician that killed a really big bull, and he'll share his story and maybe some tidbits. So check it out, just eastmans.com.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Great resource. Well, thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thank you.